Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And if you've been a longtime listener of this podcast, you should recognize our guest. We have Ashley Moss. She was Ashley Thompson the first time that we had her on, but as we can see, she has gotten married now. I mean, it's been 2 years. Yep, we can see their wedding ring. It's been 2 years almost to the day since we last had her on, and a lot has changed since we last talked to her. So yeah, she's on here to just, give us an update and talk about what she's been up to since then. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Ashley, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I ask this question every single time, no matter how many times I get grief for it. What is the weather like today?
Today it's really dreary, and so it's super humid where I live, which is Register, Georgia. So today it's muggy, a little bit of rain, a little bit of clouds. It's supposed to be like this all week. So
I mean, that is my ideal type of weather, though. It is just like that up here, where it's like when you have this type of pale white skin, like that's the one time that you can go outside and enjoy yourself and like actually like go on a walk and not have to worry about getting burnt to an absolute crisp. So, this is a holiday for me, basically. It's like a mini holiday, but I mean, it's been 2 years since we last had you on. And like I said before, like a lot of stuff has changed. What have you been up to since we last had you on?
any and everything. So I did get married. I got married in May to my best friend of 3 years. So if you would have told me 2 years ago, last time you had me on here, that I would have married this man, I would have been like, no, you're crazy. So I did get married. We are currently building a house. We are currently building my gym. So I am building a gym that is connected to my land on where we're building our property, or where our property is. So I'm in the process of opening my own gym and training studio. So a lot has happened in 2 years. I think last time I saw you or talked to you was I was getting ready for my one of my shows that was in September. So that was my last show that I've done. Not forever, but for right now.
She's had other things to worry about, as she just said to
Yeah.
everyone. So, there's that. Have you always wanted to be a gym owner, or is that something that you just thought of recently, or what's your history been like with wanting to own a gym?
I'm a personal trainer and nutritionist, so that is what I do. That is my calling and my true passion. But I always wanted to own a gym? Not necessarily. Have I always wanted to help people? Absolutely. And it just made sense for me to be able to do that in the comfort of my own home. So it wasn't exactly my lifelong dream growing up, but now it definitely is. I can't see me doing anything else.
Do you have any idea like what type of gym this is going to be? Is it just going to be just an overall gym where like you can do everything, or is it like going to be like a specific type of gym?
So it is going to be a training gym. So and only if you're training like with me will you be able to come in and out. So it's going to be pretty large. It's going to be functional training. So I am a bodybuilder, so it's going to be a lot of bodybuilding equipment. Your basic movement, squat, bench press, all the fun stuff.
I was gonna say if she's opening like a jazzercise or something like that, I'd be like, okay, what's going on here? Yeah, so with that, of course,
Yeah, not my thing.
of course, that has to be. But I mean, going through all this stuff, how have you kept up with your health and fitness? Going through, I mean, being married, getting a place, and now working on a gym. How have you been able to keep up with it with your lifestyle?
Well, my health is as selfish as it sounds is my priority, and it is my billboard. So my body is my billboard, and if I don't look like I take care of myself, I don't expect anybody to trust me. And so for me, it's my ally. It's my way to escape. If I'm stressed, whatever I'm feeling, me working out always brings me back to being center and just having me feeling my best. Fitness, as nerdy as it sounds, it truly is my life.
Oh, you said it better than I could have ever said it. Like, you have to look a certain way if you want to. Yeah, if you want to make any money being a personal trainer, it's like you do not want to.
Absolutely.
You do not want to be like 300 pounds and be like, yeah, everyone come work out with me, and people are gonna be like, what are you, what are you offering me? So yeah, that is
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a blessing and a curse where like you do need to maintain that certain thing where it can kind of be stressful at times, but I mean.
Right.
I bet it's been stressful these last few years, at least with, like planning weddings and, figuring out stuff with your house and with the gym. How do you like to deal with stress? Because stress is something that really just impacts the body in so many different ways. And it's one of the things that really people don't understand when they're getting started in a health and fitness journey, really can impact your body negatively if you have a lot of amount of stress.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, cortisol is, one of the key hormones in the stress environment. So anytime that you're stressed, your cortisol levels will rise. And when your cortisol levels rise, you're then, of course, going to be more prone to holding on to body fat. So, because I know that, I really try to take deep breaths and keep that cortisol level at bay. Um, Obviously, there's been a lot going on in my life to where it has been pretty stressful, but kind of like I said before, the way to ease my stress relief is to work out. I'm actually way more stressed if I don't get my workout in. So, I know I'm not, like everyone else, it's a rare breed of person, but it works for me and I'm happy that, God created me this way.
That's why I love interviewing them because like they are a rare breed. For every like 1,000 people, you might find one of them in there that actually has that mindset where like, if I don't work out, I'm going to be stressed. And then you talk
Yeah.
to other people and you're like, wait, what? But I do got to ask, what was it like finding a wedding dress for you? Because like, they're not built for women that have a little bit more muscle normally. So what was that
Okay.
journey like?
Well, I am not your typical girl that grew up knowing what envisioned my wedding dress looking like. I was totally like, I don't know, I guess we'll go try on some stuff and figure it out. But yes, so we went one day. My sister, my mother, and my aunt. We all just went one day. We're like, all right, let's just take a look. And we were there for maybe 2 hours um, before I found my dress. But I had to try on a lot because my problem is my lats. So I do have that V taper. So if you're wanting anything that's like slim fit, you better have some wiggle room in the shoulders because when I, stand, I do have that V. So it was pretty tough, but I think I pulled it off with wearing, what I felt comfortable in, and so it worked.
Only 2 hours. I'm surprised. But then again, yeah, I have friends that go and do that aren't even in shape, and then they go and it's a whole like week-long affair that they have with friends. And
Yeah.
thank God I was not born a woman.
No.
That's the one day
No.
where I'm like, thank God I really was not born a woman, because like I could not deal with that type of
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I
It's a
just got to
lot.
go and get. I mean, I just go and get fit. It takes me 15 minutes, and I'm just like, oh hey, I'll just buy whatever. So that is a
Yeah.
whole thing. But yeah, I was just at a wedding a couple of weeks ago up in it was up in Alexandria, Minnesota, which is it's a beautiful lake town. And I mean, everyone, do not have free beer at your wedding because stuff will happen. And I took advantage of that. I'm just going to leave it at that, where it's like, I'd never had barbecued pizza in my life either. But it got to the point where like I wasn't even tasting the pizza. So, it was like,
Yeah.
it was a fun time, everyone. But
You enjoyed yourself.
before I talk about my drunken wedding shenanigans, and I did not embarrass myself, I was the one who led everyone when You Make Me Want to Shout came on the radio, or came on when the band started playing. I was the guy that got up there and led everyone though. So, it was, we had fun there. But yeah, I don't want everyone to just be like, oh yeah, Ryan just gets drunk at weddings, because, I sometimes do. But, you
You're
know,
human.
and plus with COVID and everything like that, don't even get me. Well, first of all, how have you? The last time I talked to you, we were in the throngs of COVID, where it was like probably
Yes.
at as bad as, August of 2020. I mean, it was still like super bad. What has it been like for you? Since things have gotten easier now. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't even heard the words COVID in like the last 6 months. Really, honestly.
Yeah. Thank God. It was a bumpy 2 years, to say the least. It was very bumpy. But same. We've been very lucky that here in Georgia it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was bad everywhere, obviously, but it we are lucky that like all restrictions got lifted pretty quickly. So I could say that I guess we're more blessed than others, definitely when COVID came around. But I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad that things are somewhat back to reality and normal.
I mean, I still see people wearing masks sometimes when I go out for walks and they're running outside. I don't even get me started on that. But that's
Yeah.
just that's the
Yeah.
only reminder really that I ever truly have of it. But
Mhm.
like you said, you've taken 2 years off of bodybuilding. Do you have a date in mind of when you might go back, or right now are you just focused on so much that you're just like, hey, let's give it some time and wait till I feel like I'm ready to, maybe get back into prep and see what happens?
Well, right now I'm currently judging, so I'm judging shows. So I have a show that I'm judging in September. I'm still coaching bodybuilding, so I have a client that's actually competing in 2 weeks. But I miss it already. I do, but for me, there's not a date, but there is a time that I would like to get back on stage, and that is after I have children. So I want kids, as you know, or it's a very taxing sport on your body, especially being a female. So you do need to take time off to properly get your body. So I want to come back. I do, but just got to do some other things first.
Absolutely, yeah. I have not met one person that's ever like had a kid in between preps, basically, where they're just like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna have." Yeah, it is. You really do need to take your time and take it off. But how long have you been a judge in bodybuilding?
So I was certified right after my last show. So I guess about a little year and a half, close to 2 years that I've been judging. So it kind of keeps me in the world, in the realm of things, just on the other side of the table.
What is your favorite part about judging, and what is your least favorite part about judging?
Ooh. Well, my favorite part about judging is honestly seeing new faces. I'm a WMBF pro, so I see a lot of the same people, which is great. I've met a lot of great friends, but seeing new talent, that's the bodybuilding world is just always growing, up and coming. I mean, it just gets better and better each year. So that's really my favorite part is just seeing new talent. The worst part is when you see, two people that really deserve the same trophy. That's always the hardest part. You just got to tie into, those little centimeter of a difference on each person, and it's tough because everyone puts so much hard work into it, and you want to give everybody first place, but you just can't.
How do you find those centimeters of differences? Because I went to my first ever bodybuilding show about 3 weeks ago. It was the Twin Cities Open here, and I only went there because it was like literally walking distance from my house. And I met some people that I had on the podcast before, but like there was about two different instances where the person looked exactly the same to me, and there it was for the men there was two people that looked the same to me, and then for the women there's two people that looked basically like exactly the same for me, and I couldn't judge. How do you find that little stuff? Because I know that probably with the trained eye it becomes easier, but like for the average person, there are some scenarios where people look at it and they're like, I cannot spot any difference in any way.
Well, I guess it really just depends on the category. So that if it's bodybuilding, figure, bikini, we look for symmetry. We look for, are you symmetrical from left to right, from top to bottom? Um, Muscularity, of course, muscle, and then presentation. So, do you have a good stage presence? And a lot of times we'll see people that look great, but if it's a bikini girl and she's too dry, you know, she needs to go into figure. It could be just the smallest detail, like she just needed a little bit more water. And it's so crazy, she looks awesome, but she's just a little too vascular. It's something as little as that, to be honest.
Every judge seems to have their own little preference when it comes to, like the size or definition or just sort of what exactly they're looking for. What do you think is your preference when it comes to, the size versus definition sort of thing that I think a lot of judges fall under?
Conditioning. You know, for me, and I think all athletes, I think they all have something to bring to the table. They're all beautiful. But for me, I would much rather see someone in good condition versus somebody that just can, go lift a car. It to me like,
That's what
do you
strongmen are for, basically. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. You look great, but can you do, is there endurance there? Have you like really worked for it? And like I said, everyone looks great, but the conditioning part is which truly stands out to me.
Yeah, to me that is bodybuilding, is the conditioning, because it's like anyone can, I mean not anyone, but it's like go be a power lifter then if you want to just put on like the size, if you just want to be just a huge hulk of mass, basically just like that. But
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, yeah, I agree with that totally. And I mean, this has been since we last had you on. I mean, 2021 was a huge year when it came to just there were so many deaths in the sport, and it was just an eye-opening year for I think so many people that weren't really that familiar with the sport, where they just became more aware of how extreme this sport can be and how just devastating it can be for people just because they saw a lot of deaths happening. And I already knew about, like some of the extremes that this sport has people doing at times. But what was that like for you, being someone that has competed in the sport, just sort of seeing that year that was last year, where I mean, so much tragedy really happened in the sport?
You know, the world that we live in now is so it's all based on looks, and social media has just become this place where we're constantly comparing ourselves and wanting more and digging deeper, and just it's gotten to this point where it's not attainable. It's, we're going 90 miles per hour trying to, look like Joe down the street, and we're different people. We're different bodies. It's like never ending keeping up with the Joneses, and you just it's eye opening to me this past year because it's just not what the sport ever intended. Bodybuilding was just supposed to be something that, was of course awesome to watch and to be a part of. But now it's just gotten to this point where it's not what it used to be. It's not. And it's a shame and it's sad. I still love the sport, but it's just one of those things that it's just not attainable anymore. It's not attainable they're constantly wanting more and getting bigger, and it's just never enough.
I couldn't agree with you more. Where I do not know what the sport's going to look like in 5 to 10 years. I don't understand. I mean, it's just, I think as medicine evolves too, and as, just other things evolve too, it's going to be interesting to see where they take it. But what was your reaction when you heard that like the Arnold just canceled figure as well for next year, which like most people were just already like, oh, they canceled, women's bodybuilding, women's physique. And then it's like women's bodybuilding. A lot of people, like I had a guest on a couple days ago, was like, yeah, well, they're kind of like the black sheep anyway, where it's like, it wasn't that surprising. But once they canceled figure, people are like, what's going on?
Well, I am a figure athlete, so obviously that was not okay with me. But kind of like I just said, each category is starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the bikini girls were looking like the figure girls. The figure girls were trying to play catch up to the, physique girls. And so really and truly, if physique girls are looking like bodybuilders and bikini girls are looking like figures, what does figure have to go to? And so it just kind of they were the first to get, booted, and it's unfortunate because to me, I feel like that's just it's such a middle ground. You have the leanness, you have the muscularity. To me, it's just the total package, but obviously I'm a little biased.
So if you were to compete like tomorrow, basically, would you think that you would probably want to do wellness then, as opposed to like what figure is now, because figure is just getting too big, or would you still try to do a figure competition?
Well, I would still probably try to do figure because wellness, it does emphasize on like stronger lower body. And I have a strong lower body, but I don't have the glutes. I don't have a big booty. I wish I did, but I don't. I do coach wellness girls. I have a girl that's competing in wellness, but I still don't have the lower body to meet the wellness needs. And I'm okay with that. Like I know where I stand in the bodybuilding world. I'm totally jealous of those girls that can get up there and, rock a wellness category, but I'm just a figure girl. That's where my heart is.
It's like the guys with big traps for me. That's the one thing for me where it's like the dudes that like don't even work out, and then they just look like they have trouble breathing, just like walking around. You're just like, come on. So that's the
Yeah,
that's the female equivalent is the nice glutes and butt, basically. But I
exactly.
mean, yeah, that is. I've always found that so funny talking to people now, because like I remember when wellness first got announced like a couple of years ago, people were talking about like, oh, it's going to help, make people, not get as bulky for like figure and for other things, because now they have alternative to go, and it's like, no, it's been the exact opposite, where figure's still getting bigger and bigger, where it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really think it's really done what it intended to do, which was, reduce the size that I think people really thought about it for. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so
And I just can't hang. I can't hang with the girls that big, I'm a petite girl, so
and that's what I don't know what it's going to do for women that are more size, like petite, like, yeah, you're muscular and everything like that, but it's like, you're not going to go on stage against some of these other girls that have like a good, like 20 pounds of muscle on you, basically, that are
right.
now going to be figure competitors. So where do you think it's going to end up being eventually? Because I think it will reach a tipping point where it's like, it's going to be push or shove, basically.
You know, I do too, and it is kind of scary because that's kind of like where, like, for the men's aspect, like where classic physique came in. They're bigger than physique and they're smaller than bodybuilders. But even the classic physique guys, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and their legs are just growing like tree trunks. And it's just, that's why people are dying, because we're never big enough, and people are pushing their body to the limit. So honestly, what I think is going to happen is we're going to have more deaths in this sport, and it's going to, hopefully open some eyes. But it's nothing to mess around with. Your health is important.
I mean, I'm just going to say it, the human body is not designed to be as big as a certain, I mean, there's like a limit to what a human body can really look like before things start going haywire. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we are. I mean, I still look at some of those, photos from some of those old bodybuilding shows from like the 80s and 90s, and you're just like, why can't we just return to that? Basically, where it's just,
Exactly.
yeah.
There's nothing like it. There is nothing like, I was thinking of that the other day, like, Dorian Yates, like the '90s style Arnold, like that. To me, that is true bodybuilding, and it looks great.
Yeah, well, and even looking at some of the old ones like the Corey Eversons and stuff like that, it's like
Yeah.
that is a muscularity where it's not like so it's not so out there, and so, and it's more appealing to the general public too. So I wish that, now obviously anyone that competes in bodybuilding and does, like female bodybuilding now, it's like more power to you, because that takes so much
Yeah.
hard work and dedication, and it's that is a sacrifice that I don't think I could ever really comprehend myself. But again, it's just, yeah, I don't know what the future is going to look like, and I'm going to be interested to see what it eventually, turns out to be. But you're being a bodybuilding coach too. I mean, how are you dealing with all this change too as a bodybuilding coach when it comes to just your clients? Like, I don't know what I would be telling my clients right now if they're just like, I don't know how I'm supposed to look for these shows now.
Right. I stick to what I know. I stick to what, is true as far as in the bodybuilding world. But I also, it's kind of like continuing education. Each year they're wanting, different criteria. And, so I learn the criteria, and I just make sure that my clients are meeting that criteria. But at the same time, I'm still going to coach my clients the way that I've always coached them, and that's in the healthiest way possible. I take pride in that. I take pride in, yes, getting them on stage and looking their best, but doing it in a way that's not killing themselves. And so I'm just going to keep chugging on the way that I always have.
There needs to be more of that too, because I've heard some stories about some coaches. I won't get into it on the podcast because
Oh
I'll get
yeah.
copyright and sued. But like, everyone knows those names that are just like, you're just like, okay, I don't understand that. But
Yeah, they don't care.
in
They
your
don't care.
opinion, what makes a quote unquote good coach? Because I've heard so many stories of, people, they get a coach and they were with them for a year and then they don't like them and they move on. But there are the few examples that I've had on where like there are people that have been with their coaches for almost like a decade. And a lot of them, it just comes down to their version of a good coach. And the thing about being a good coach, though, is that it differs from person to person. You can
Mhm.
be, a complete a-hole to some person. That's what they want. They want a person to be really hard on them and really do that. And then you have to be, it's, I don't know. It's kind of like being a teacher too, where it's like there's some students where you can get really, really hard on them and they'll
Mhm.
appreciate that, and then there's other ones where they'll just break down and they won't enjoy it. But in your opinion, what makes a good coach?
For me, honestly, blood work, getting to know the client, not just going in there blindsided or just blindfolded, and working with a client you don't know anything about. You don't know where their hormones are at. So if you, especially with females, if you go into a prep with a female who already has low testosterone, low estrogen, low progesterone, you're ruining her metabolism. So to me, especially when it comes to females, asking about their cycle. Are they regular? To me, that's what makes a good coach because that lets them know, hey, I care about you. I care about what your metabolism is going to do after this show. And that to me is an icebreaker for a good coach. Like, I want to know that you want what's best for me on this show and then after what I'm going to feel like afterwards.
Well, now obviously that you aren't competing, you can probably, your diet is a little bit different, but how has your diet changed now as you're not competing for a while as opposed to it was when you compete? Please tell me that you're enjoying some food a little bit.
I am, it was tough, honestly, after my last show because this is the longest I've competed every year. So this is, 2 years off stage, and this is the longest it's been for me. And I never had to really worry about it because I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm about to start prep. I can enjoy. But right now, I'm in off season for life or until who knows when. So I still eat very clean. That's just what my body likes. But hot wings are still my favorite food. I had donuts at my wedding. I didn't have a cake. I had a huge donut wall. I know. I had a Dairy Queen Blizzard last week. So
What kind of blizzard?
an M&M Blizzard. It was a large chocolate M&M Blizzard.
Wow, I don't even think I've ever heard of a chocolate M&M blizzard. I'll have to check my local Dairy Queen next time I go. I go once a month. I go and I have my large extra cookie dough blizzard.
Oh, see, Dairy Queen is where it's at.
Yeah. There was one right by my high school too. So that's when after high school we'd go after baseball practice, football practice, basketball practice. Everyone go to the Dairy Queen and just, and they got good food too. People don't talk about as much about Dairy Queen's food as much, but they have. I like that they leave that little bread too in the boxes that you get.
Yes,
It's the little stuff like that always gets me, and they got good chicken tenders that I really enjoy. But
they do have the best chicken tenders.
you brought up donuts. So the biggest state fair in the entire country, the Minnesota State Fair, when it comes to the amount of guests. Now, the Texas State Fair gets more guests, but that's only because the Texas State Fair is open for about 2 months. The Minnesota State Fair is open for 3 weeks, and we get more guests than any other one other than Texas. But they have deep fried donuts. That first of all, for one of these they do this for 3 different types of foods, and I will go over them here, everyone, because I need to get myself mentally prepared for tomorrow when I go there for the first time. They have a glazed donut that then they dump in caramel, then they dump in chocolate, and then they deep fry it. And they also do that with Twinkies.
Oh my gosh!
And they do that. They can do it with a corn dog. They dump it in chocolate and they give it to you. They do it with everything. So we're a big fishing state. I mean, the land of 10,000 lakes. They deep fry walleye, and you can put it in chocolate if you want. Where it's everything there. And then Minnesota is we're either number 1 or 2 when it comes to healthiest states. But then you look at that fair and you're like, how are we even that? But it's just, I don't understand that. I prepare myself mentally. I'm going to go on an extra long walk tonight just so I can, maybe burn off an extra, couple hundred calories that I know I'm going to definitely, put on there. But yeah, you brought up donuts, and damn you for doing that, because I am just drooling right now just thinking about that. But another tangent that I was going to ask you about, because I know that you're a Georgia football fan.
Yes.
They finally won the national championship. What was your reaction?
Well, I actually had COVID during that time, but I was obviously watching it in the comfort of my own home. I was not in Indianapolis. However, I was crying, just tears of joy. I had on my sweatpants. I had on my Georgia boots. I mean, I was decked out, but I was sick. But I have never been so happy.
I did think about you when they were getting throttled by Alabama in the SEC championship, and I was going to message you being like, don't worry, you guys are still alive. Don't freak out yet. Because I was like, oh my God. Because Georgia was such the better team, and then they just get killed in the SEC championship game. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I was like, maybe it's just because it's Alabama. And then when they finally won the national championship, I was like, because I don't hate out because I'm Big Ten, Big Ten schools. I don't really play them as much, but I just was sick and tired of seeing them win all the time. So
everybody was.
It's ridiculous. You got to add more parity. It's just like that with, I always like to make the joke with, like, because I had Andrea Shaw, and it's like, she's gonna win the Olympia again this year. She's gonna win. She's gonna win as long as she wants. So it's like, we need more parity where it's like, Andrea, again, I love you. If you're listening to this, this is not an insult against you. It's just like, you're too good. Like, it's like, you
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Agreed.
slim down a
Agreed.
little bit so people have a chance. Then basically, what's like,
Like,
I
give
had
me a chance.
I had her on, and you're talking about, like, I do adjust the camera basically just to, like, get her to fit in and stuff like that. Where it's
Yeah.
like, you're like, how is that even humanly possible? But it's, again, more product.
Yeah, I
But
saw that. Yeah, her shoulders are awesome. It's awesome.
it is absolutely ridiculous, but in a good way. But I mean, now that you also aren't, in the competition life, is your cardio hopefully less than it was before?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. See, I enjoy running, but when I say enjoy, I run maybe once a week and only like 3 miles. Just to keep, a little bit of heart health in there. Any more than that, no. Because I'm not eating as much as I was. I wasn't, I mean, of course I'm eating a lot, but when I'm prepping, I'm having a full on routine of meals, and when I'm not eating as routinely, I'm, and I'm doing cardio, I'll wither away. So I don't want that. I want to keep my gains.
That's the only problem with, like, I love walking, and I got to get my 10,000 steps in a day. Like, I made the goal of, I was going to do 1,000,000 steps this summer. So, like, I'm like at 930,000 right now. So all I gotta do is I gotta do like 10,000 steps the rest of the week or the rest of the month, and then I'll reach the 1,000,000 steps. And there have been times where I've only walked, like 10,000 steps like 3 or 4 times a week, and then I make up for it by doing like, like 13,000 steps a day for like a couple of. But that was my goal. But I do have a walking story that I gotta share that happened to me last night. So I was walking past a neighbor's house, and I hadn't been in this part of town recently because I try to mix things up, because it got to a point where I was walking in certain parts of, you know, the suburbs where you just get so used to it that you're just like, I want to see some new stuff. So there was an owl on top of a mailbox. I did not think it was an actual owl. I thought it was like maybe like a decoration that they put on it, because you know how owls can just be so, like, they don't even move and you don't even think
Right.
that they're alive. So I walked up close to it and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go check this thing out. So I got within about 2 feet of it, and then all of a sudden its head turned,
Oh.
and it scared the living crap out of me. And then it just took off, and you know how owls are silent when they fly. So then it just everyone. So again, beware, everyone, make sure that you check things first. And then I see deer all the time. I have tons of photos on my camera of seeing deer and stuff like that. So I'm a huge nature guy like that. But we also talked about sleep the last time that we're on, and hopefully your sleep is better though too as well, because like I've heard, especially when you're on prep, sleep becomes so hard. But now that you're, taking time off, please tell me that you have somewhat of a more regular sleep schedule, because otherwise I'd be like, what's the point then?
I wish I could say yes. I think honestly we have just so much going on with like growing a business, and like other than that, like I try to go to bed early, but I train clients really early in the morning as well. So trying to get everything all in a day is pretty tricky. But I am someone, I do require a lot of sleep. I require at least 7 to 8 hours every night. If I don't get that, I can go one day without that, but the next day, 2 days, 3 days, I'm struggling. So, I mean, I do require a lot of sleep.
Yeah, I work 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. 3 days a week. That's my job right there. So I'm not gonna lie, when you said like 10 a.m. my time for like this interview, I was like, okay, we're gonna see if this works. Now, luckily, I didn't have to work last night, so I got to sleep in a little bit. So I got to sleep, a little bit closer than that. But I do not get how you guys get up there. I mean, I made the goal of my life because my high school started at 7:50, which is a lot earlier than a lot of other ones around here. Like normally they'd start at like 8:30 or something like that. But like I made my life goal as soon as I graduated high school and went off to college. I never had a class earlier than 9 o'clock. And I told myself I'm never getting up for anything earlier than 7 a.m. That's the earliest I'll ever get up. So I don't understand how you guys do it, but again, that's the power of motivation and dedication to the sport,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well.
Oh yeah.
Are you glad that you weren't on prep when you were playing for the wedding though too? Because I've had 2 guests on. Now I'd had them on after they got married, just like you, but like they were prepping while they were while they were preparing for the wedding and doing all that. Could you imagine what that have been like?
No, I could not. Part of me wanted to, like, so I looked good for the wedding. That's the mindset I know that these brides have, but at the same time, I'm so glad I didn't.
Well, first of all, if your husband still marries you after you're prepping for your wedding, that's a special type of person. Then basically, like
That's
that's
exactly right.
really testing the limits before you guys are even married. So, I
That's
mean,
right. That is exactly right.
I mean, if you want to find out if he's a keeper or not, I guess you can go ahead and do that. But I mean, you might not like what you find. But yeah, the moment that I saw that you were getting married, I was like, okay, please do not go on your prep while you're doing this thing,
I
because like
know.
I've talked to two of them now, both of them, they're still married and they're still happy, but it's, it's one of those things where it just amazes me that people are willing to do that. But we talked about this, last time as well, but I love to bring it up every single time. I have like my set of like 4 or 5 questions that I will ask you every single time I have you on, regardless. But like, you're not the average looking woman. You walk out dressed the way that you are right now, you are going to get like looks, just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the regular, just be like, wow, that's
Mhm.
fascinating. And has it gotten easier for you now, even since we last had you on like 2 years ago, just to accept that fact that like, hey, I am sort of like, it's like being a mini celebrity almost, where you're just going to get more stares, and it's human nature.
I do get it hasn't really changed a lot, especially, like, as a woman, we grow up, anytime that a girl is looking at another girl, you almost think that they're thinking poorly of you, or they're talking badly of you, so I still get that, but now, I just take it as a compliment, whether I don't know what they're saying, you know, but I'm just like, "You know what? I don't look like the average female, and I'm okay with that." I'm so much, I'm 32 years old. I'm confident in who I am. I'm happy with who I am. So I always just try to take that to heart. That I'm just like, what? It hasn't gotten easier. I still get the looks, but I'm like, what? I kind of like it at this point.
Well, I mean, talking about just like the average person, I mean, I'm not going to lie. This pandemic has really sped up the obesity in this country. And I really like,
Hmm.
I'm joking when I say this, and I said this on my last podcast too, but like, we almost need to go back to public fat shaming now. Like, we're almost at that point as a society where like we're almost reaching that point where it's like we got to really evaluate ourselves as a
Yeah.
country specifically, because even in Minnesota, where we're one of the healthiest states, like it's gotten bad where I even walk out and go like public events. Like, I'm going to a Twins game on Friday. I can guarantee when I go there, like half the people that I see, I'm just gonna be like, okay, guys, we need to do something. So what's the best piece of advice that you give anyone who just walks up to you and might say like, like, hey, Ashley, I want to try to get in shape, because God forbid we need more people with that type of mindset. But if someone just walks up to you and just goes, hey, Ashley, I want to just try to get in shape, what advice do you have just for someone just to get started? Because just taking that first step is the hardest thing for so many people. And I think once they do it, it just becomes so much easier to move on.
Well, honestly, it could go either way. Having a step challenge, a goal that to meet each day with challenges, as far as like just taking a step, or simply changing something small in their diet. That's how I begin, I would say, is, one thing you change. Either you're walking and moving more, or you're changing your diet. A lot of people are going to do the moving more because eating healthy is expensive, and like to me, it's worth it, that I all about investing in my health. But because of COVID, everything is so expensive, but people are using that as an excuse to grab the Cheetos instead of the strawberries. And so I would say to invest in your health. Start changing up your diet if you really want to get in shape and get healthy. Make a small change every single day, whether it be with your food or movement.
Well, and it's also like the loneliness too that people felt. And as you're talking to someone that got up half an hour before we started talking to this, and you can already tell just how hyper I am. How do you think I dealt with the pandemic, not being around people and stuff? I started podcasting even more than ever because I needed that human interaction. So I think a lot of people too, it's just like, yeah, people need to be around other people. And I think that really led to a lot of, because I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
I put on 10 pounds during COVID too, because I would just, I mean, it's like, who am I trying to impress? I'm not going to see anybody in the foreseeable future. So it's like,
Right.
it's that. But then, my walking thing, I lost it within about a month and a half. And then I still do the weight training and stuff like that. But just like, I was eating so much that there gets to a certain point, everyone, where if you eat enough, like, you can work out as much as you want, but it's like, you're still going to put on weight. Like, it's not, I was
Exactly.
reaching that point, myself as
Right.
well. But yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But yeah, everyone just get started to, and just like, even like you said, yeah, like with walking, it's free. You don't have to, and it's a good base for a lot of people to start. Like, it's getting to a point where even when I'm doing my walks, I have thoughts where it's like, we need to just have like an hour a day where everyone is mandatorily, even at gunpoint, just forced to
Yeah,
walk for an hour. I mean,
yeah,
we're getting close to that point, everyone. So I don't know, like we talk about what the sport of bodybuilding is going to look like in 5 to 10 years, but like what our country is going to look like in 5 to 10 years. Not even talking about the socioeconomic, political stuff, but like just as a obesity thing, like we're going to really, I think,
right.
have to do a deep dig on, what what we want as a society. So yeah, it's going to be
Agreed.
it's
Agreed.
going to be interesting. But
Absolutely.
have you thought at all about, now? Obviously, like you said, you plan to have kids. Have you thought at all about ways that you're going to try to get back in shape as soon as possible after you have a kid? Because
Oh yeah.
luckily, I am not falling under the burden of ever having to experience the miracle of childbirth myself, so I do not have to worry about the extra added stuff that comes along with that. But
Right.
have you already like done your research on like how to get back to that bikini bod, as everyone always says, after they have a kid?
Oh yeah. I actually am in the process of getting my certification in like postnatal. So, after delivery. So I haven't even had a baby, so I can't even say that I've experienced it, but I'm already getting certified in postpartum. So, I'm going to have this extra certification that's going to allow me to, really and truly put the knowledge, with postpartum, but I'm also going to put the knowledge in the respect that I know my body. I know what it's capable of. And I know that, of course, I'm going to have to take things a little bit easier, but I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to working out, and if I'm going to have to like slowly ease my way back into it. I know that that's what the doctor will want, but I'm going to bounce back pretty quickly.
She's gonna be that 9 month pregnant mom that still has like cap shoulders in the waiting room when people are like waiting, and you're like, "What do you do? Like, what do you do?"
That's my
Yeah,
goal. That's my goal.
that's, hey, you got.
Life goals.
Hey, that is great. And I mean, hey, who knows? You might hit the genetic jackpot where I hear about sometimes those moms only gain like 10 pounds really when they're pregnant. You're just like,
Yeah,
how is that even a thing? So who
right.
knows? You never know
That'd
with
be
that, but
nice.
absolutely. And I mean, I know, again, these are two questions that I ask every single guest as we wrap things up every single time. If someone were to walk up to you and say, Ashley made a decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding or just the health and fitness life in general, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Ooh, that's tough. You know, there's honestly, there's obviously a lot that I would change because things are just so different now. I would want things to go back to what it was, to stop being so big. Just it's bigger is not always better, and that to me is what I would say is bigger is not always better, and just to go back to what it used to be, what they were initially looking for when it came to bodybuilding.
That, and I've said this a million times, with prize money. I mean, like, for me, the whole thing with this sport is that, like, if you are a pro in this, you should be compensated enough where it's like, it helps you, like, even just have like a stipend for all the pros where it's like, you just maybe like $20,000, $30,000, just a stipend every year where it's like, if push came to shove, it would help people out so much financially, where it's like, people don't understand the stress of trying to live a normal like 9 to 5 job, or just having a job in general, and then doing, even if you are a personal trainer that works in the gym, I mean, it's still so much more stressful than if you didn't really have to worry about that. Like, it would make things, I think, so much easier too for so many people. So that's mine, as well, that I'd like to add on. But
Oh yeah,
Ashley, I don't think we're gonna wait another 2 years to have you on. Normally I try to wait a year, but then some guests, literally, I just totally forget because I'm having so many people on that, like, after a while I'm just like, oh wait, it's been like 2 years since. That's what literally what I was thinking of. So like, I was, like, a couple weeks ago, I was going through a period where I was like, let me just scroll through who I've had on before and see like if I haven't had them on for a while. And then yours, and I was like, oh wait, it's been like way too long. Like, I need to have her back on. But so when I have you on, I'm gonna try for a year every once. When I have you back on in a year, where would you like to be at just in your own life? Like, what would you like to have achieved when I talk to you a year from today?
at least be pregnant or be in the process of recovering from pregnancy. We're trying pretty hard right now. So that's where I would like to be. I'd like to be a mama, and I'd like to be a mama or a mama in the making.
If you get pregnant within the next couple of weeks, and then like you still have like abs and stuff when I have you back on in a year, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm just gonna let you know. Where I'm just gonna be like, this is ridiculous. I don't even know if I can talk to you. So just be prepared for those for me just giving you a hard time just for being like, you look that good when you're so just every I might want to just try to get her on when she's like 9 months pregnant then, so I can feel a little bit better about myself then, and just be like, okay, you don't look like totally great. Not no, well you still look, but like you get what I'm saying. You don't look totally like in shape, like great. And so yeah, there's
in the delivery room just over there pumping.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well yeah, well that's what your baby's gonna be for. Your baby's gonna be a bicep curl thing, for the whole time.
Exactly.
See, that's what they're meant for.
That's why I'm having a kid.
Again, at home weights too. You don't need weights then. You just use them as that. But
That's
again,
right.
Ashley, I really appreciate having you on again and just sharing your journey with us. It's always been a delight to talk to you. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
WNBF. That's who I would like to give a shout out to. And of course, you, Ryan. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that as well. And lastly, this is a question that I just came up with about 500 podcasts in, so it shows how good of a host I am that this much of a basic question took me this long to figure out. I think this to myself every single time I have a health and fitness guest on, whether they're a bodybuilder or whether they're like you and they haven't competed for a while. I still, just my human nature and my brain thinks this to myself when they're talking. Why do they do this to themselves? Why do they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brains. So we get a reaction like that almost every single time. Where like you even as yourself think that every once in a while. And if you say you don't, I'll play along with it. But deep down I'll be like, okay, she's lying. Like let's be completely honest. But like your why. I bet you still hear that from people to this day. Like, Ashley, why do you do this? Why are you this obsessed with working out? Why do you do? What is your why? How do you like to respond to that? Because everyone's why is different. And for me, that's the most fascinating part of this whole journey. Because like I said, I'm someone who is into health and fitness, but like I don't do the whole bodybuilding. And even me as someone who's into health and fitness still say that to myself when talking to some of these guests, like, why do they do this to themselves?
Right. Well, for me, it's easy. I'm not sure if I said last time or not, but I had an eating disorder. So I struggled with anorexia nervosa. So at the age of 21, I was like 78 pounds. So I was on my deathbed. So it took me 3 years to, recover from that. But once I did, it was a game changer. I wanted to pour my heart and soul into being healthy. And then I just started finding that skinny was not exactly what I was looking for, and strong was what I was looking for. And it just became this big snowball of just being obsessed with building muscle and being healthy. And then I just got introduced to bodybuilding in 2014 is when I started competing and just fell in love with it.
Do you ever look at old photos and then look at like current photos and just think like, how the heck was I able to transform as drastically as I have?
Oh yeah, there's my very first show, my very first prep. There's nothing like it. It's crazy. I gave myself 12 weeks and before then in my very first show, I mean, it was like night and day difference. And when I saw that body transformation, that first time, I was like, this is what I want to do. I love this. I am sold. And it just pulled at my heartstrings.
And again, anyone out there, if you're also suffering from anorexia or anything like that, I'll leave a link down below for numbers that you can call and help that you can get. I have found that there's been a lot of guests that I've had on have suffered through that too. And that's been eye-opening for me, like as a male, where there are guys that suffer from it, but it's not nearly to the extreme that I think the amount of women do. So it's been very eye-opening for me. So yeah, everyone, I'll leave a link down below for that. And Ashley, is there any... Oh, yeah, I already asked for the shout-outs, everyone. See, this is what happens when I get up, a little bit earlier than I normally do. But again, it's for Ashley. I'll get up. I'll get up at 8 a.m. for that. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.